Hello, gentle listener. Welcome to Pets for Sleep. Whether you have joined us before or have only just found this quiet place, this is a space to slow down, learn something gentle about the animals we love, and let the day soften little by little. Tonight, we are looking at a question many cat owners have quietly wondered about. How does a cat choose its favorite person? Picture a calm room near the end of the day. 3 people are sitting nearby. One has food crumbs on a sleeve. Another is holding a soft blanket. A third is simply reading. The cat wakes from a cushion, stretches its front legs, and looks around. It could stay where it is. It could move toward the blanket, the food smell, or an open lap. Instead, it crosses the room and settles beside one particular person. That choice may carry information about memory, smell, sound, routine, touch, trust, and the cat's personality. Cats cannot tell us which person they prefer. They cannot explain whether they feel safest beside someone or expect a favorite game to begin. Scientists therefore study visible behavior. They watch where cats go, how long they remain, and whether they choose contact when they are free to walk away. If you enjoy these gentle journeys through the lives of animals, you are welcome to subscribe. And if it feels natural, you can leave a comment sharing where you are listening from tonight, or the name of a cat who has chosen a special person in your home. It helps other sleepy animal lovers find this quiet corner, one gentle listener at a time. A cat may show friendly interest in several ways. It may approach with its tail held upright, sometimes with the tip curved slightly forward. It may rub its forehead, cheeks, or side against a person's leg. It may sit within reach, need a blanket, bring over a toy, or follow someone into another room. Some cats sleep directly on a person's chest. Others choose the far end of the same sofa. A cat may leave after a minute, then return later. These are useful clues, but none can prove favorite person status alone. A lap is warm, especially when the room is cool. A person walking toward the kitchen may predict breakfast. A bedroom may contain the quietest bed or the best window. Even a loud greeting at the front door can have several causes. The cat may be pleased to see the person. It may also have learned that this arrival is followed by food, play, an open door, or access to another room. This is why researchers pay close attention to choice and context. Context means the conditions surrounding a behavior. A cat climbing onto a lap on a cold morning is not making exactly the same choice as a cat crossing a warm room to sit beside someone when food, toys, and doors are already available. The strongest sign is usually a pattern repeated across different moments. The cat approaches the same person during calm afternoons. It rests near them after eating. It seeks them during play. It returns after leaving. It remains relaxed even when nothing obvious is being offered. The freedom to leave matters greatly. Cats often respond better when they can begin and end contact for themselves. A person who waits for an approach, notices a turning head or moving tail, and stops touching before the cat becomes uncomfortable may receive more visits over time. The cat is learning that closeness does not lead to being trapped, chased, lifted without warning, or held after it wants to move. So the question is not solved by counting who fills the bowl most often. It is not solved by choosing the person with the loudest greeting at the door. A favorite person is more likely to appear through a cluster of small, voluntary choices. The cat recognizes this individual. It expects certain things from them. It understands their movements. It trusts how they respond. And when several people are available, it keeps choosing to return. That quiet walk across the room is only the visible end of a much longer process. Behind it lies the history of a small hunter that entered human settlements without giving up its strong need for control. To understand the choice, we first have to understand the kind of animal making it. The ancestors of domestic cats survived as small hunters. Their meals were usually mice, birds, lizards, insects, and other animals that could be caught by one body working alone. A wildcat did not need several companions to surround a large animal. It did not depend on a group leader to direct a chase. Its success came from patience, sharp hearing, careful movement, and a sudden burst of speed. This history shaped the way cats entered human life. Dogs followed a different path. Their wolf ancestors already lived in cooperative family groups. They hunted together, defended shared territory, raised young within a social unit, and paid close attention to the movements of other group members. Over many generations, people selected certain dogs for herding, guarding, pulling loads, retrieving prey, and following human signals. Cats were drawn toward people through a quieter exchange. Around 11,000 years ago, farming began spreading through parts of Southwest Asia. Permanent settlements created stores of wheat, barley, and other crops. Those stores attracted house mice and other rodents. Small wildcats discovered that the edges of villages offered unusually concentrated hunting grounds. A cat that tolerated nearby people could hunt around granaries, rubbish piles, walls, and storage rooms. People received help controlling animals that damaged food. The wildcats received reliable access to prey. Neither side needed a formal agreement. The useful relationship could begin simply because both species benefited from sharing the same place. Tolerance became important under these conditions. A wildcat that fled at the first sight or smell of a person lost access to the richest hunting areas. An animal that remained nearby, while keeping enough distance to feel safe, had more chances to feed. Over many generations, cats comfortable around people were more likely to remain close to settlements and reproduce there. This is one way domestication can begin. Domestication is a long process in which living near humans changes a population across generations. Those changes can come from deliberate breeding, as people choose animals with useful traits. They can also develop through ecological opportunity, when certain animals succeed because they cope well with human environments. Cats appear to have experienced a great deal of this second kind of pressure. Their early history remains incomplete, and new genetic evidence continues to change the picture. One of the oldest signs of a close human-cat relationship comes from the island of Cyprus in the eastern Mediterranean. Around 9,500 years ago, a cat was buried near a person at a settlement called Chalurokambos. Cats were not native to Cyprus, so people must have carried the animal or its ancestors across the sea. The burial suggests that the relationship had already become important enough for a cat to receive unusual treatment after death. For many years, researchers often connected the spread of domestic cats through Europe with early farmers moving westward from Southwest Asia. A large ancient genome study published in 2025 produced a more complicated result. Researchers examined genetic material from ancient and modern cats. Their findings placed the establishment of the domestic lineage ancestral to modern European house cats much later, during the Roman imperial period, roughly 2,000 years ago. One genetically domestic cat came from Mortern in present-day Austria. Its remains were dated to between about 50 years before the Common Era and 80 years into the Common Era. The wider genetic pattern pointed toward North Africa as an important source for the cats that became established across Europe. This does not reveal one exact location or moment when every domestic cat began. The Cyprus burial still shows that people and cats had formed close associations thousands of years earlier. Different wildcat populations may have entered human settings at different times, and some may have mixed as cats traveled with merchants, soldiers, and settlers. What remained consistent was the kind of work cats performed. They usually hunted on their own. People valued the result without needing to direct each movement. A useful cat did not have to wait for a spoken command before entering a grain store. It did not need to watch a human hand signal to locate a mouse. Its natural hunting behavior already matched the problem humans wanted solved. Selection therefore placed less pressure on cats to obey instructions, coordinate during organized labor, or constantly seek guidance from people. Modern house cats still carry much of that independent decision-making system. They often choose the timing of an approach. They may enjoy touch for several minutes, then leave when the sensory experience becomes too intense. A trusted person becomes valuable, partly because that person allows these decisions to remain possible. Feline selectiveness grew from a history in which closeness worked best when the cat retained control. Yet the animal resting beside a person today often seeks far more than access to rodents or shelter. Domestic cats can build social lives of surprising complexity when their surroundings make those relationships worthwhile. That independence did not prevent domestic cats from becoming socially flexible. The African wildcat, Felis libica, usually hunts and travels alone. Small prey such as mice and lizards rarely requires help from another hunter. An adult wildcat can defend a hunting area, find a mate when breeding, and then return to a mostly separate life. Domestic cats inherited much of this basic design. Even so, life near people created social conditions that wildcats encountered less often. Food could become concentrated in one dependable place. Buildings offered shared shelter from rain, wind, and cold. Large numbers of rodents could gather around grain stores, farms, ports, rubbish sites, and market streets. Several cats could remain in the same area because the available food no longer had to be spread across a wide landscape. This ability is called facultative sociality. The term sounds technical, but the idea is simple. A facultatively social animal can live alone when resources are scattered and form lasting social connections when conditions make group life useful. The group is optional rather than required for survival. This produces an enormous range of feline living arrangements. In some rural and wild areas, free-ranging cats have been recorded at densities below 1 animal per square kilometre. A square kilometre covers 100 hectares, an area roughly equal to 140 soccer fields. At that low density, two adult cats may rarely meet outside of mating or territorial encounters. At the other extreme, researchers have documented more than 2,500 free-ranging cats within a single square kilometer. Such crowded populations usually occur where people provide large amounts of food or where human waste supports abundant prey. A fishing port can offer discarded fish. A farm may contain grain-fed rodents. An urban feeding site can place many bowls within a small courtyard. The cats living in these settings do not automatically become one peaceful family. Food distribution changes how much space they must share, while familiarity changes how costly that sharing feels. A cat surrounded by close relatives may behave differently from one surrounded by unfamiliar adults. Female cats often form the stable center of a colony. Mothers, daughters, and sisters may rest close together, groom one another, and help watch over areas where kittens are raised. In some groups, related females have even been observed nursing kittens that are not their own. This shared nursing is called allonursing. It appears most often where the females know one another and where food is dependable enough to support several mothers in the same place. Adult males often range across larger areas, especially when they have not been neutered. Their movements can be shaped by the locations of females, seasonal breeding, competition, and access to food. Reproductive status therefore changes the social map. So does sex, age, health, and past experience. Two cats that grew up together may sleep with their bodies touching. Two unfamiliar adults using the same feeding station may remain several meters apart and approach only after watching each other carefully. Their shared location can reflect tolerance around a valuable resource rather than a close bond. This flexibility also appears inside homes. A cat may sleep beside one household cat while avoiding another. It may greet a familiar visitor and hide from someone who moves or speaks differently. The same animal can enjoy company in one setting and seek solitude in another. Human relationships are sorted with similar care. A household may contain 4 people, yet the cat experiences 4 separate collections of scent, voice, movement, timing, and past outcomes. One person walks heavily through the hall. Someone else opens the curtains each morning. Another plays with a wand toy after dinner. A quieter person spends long periods sitting still. Living under the same roof does not make those humans socially identical. Each one has a separate history with the cat. The cat learns who approaches quickly, who waits, who lifts without warning, and who notices the first signs that contact should end. Repeated experience gives every person a different place in the cat's social world. This is why feline companionship carries weight. A cat has the biological ability to live with limited social contact. It also has the flexibility to form stable relationships when familiarity and resources make those connections worthwhile. Closeness develops under specific conditions instead of appearing automatically. For one human to become especially important, the cat must first recognize that person as a distinct individual among all the other familiar bodies moving through the home. Each person carries a chemical pattern through the rooms they use. It rests on a shirt after several hours of wear. Small traces remain on a pillow, the arm of a sofa, and the handle of a favorite mug. Skin releases oils, sweat, and many other compounds that differ slightly from one individual to another. Soap, laundry detergent, food, medication, and the places a person visits add further layers. Together, these materials create a recurring odor profile. A cat does not need to understand where every part of that profile came from. Repeated exposure allows the combined pattern to become familiar. Smell begins when tiny airborne molecules enter the nostrils. They dissolve in a thin layer of moisture inside the nasal cavity and reach sensory cells equipped with odor receptors. A receptor is a protein that responds to certain chemical shapes. One odor can activate several types of receptor at once. The brain receives this combined activity as a pattern. There is no need for a single chemical that means owner. Recognition can emerge from the mixture, much as a human recognizes a familiar meal from several smells arriving together. Cats use this sensory system constantly. A new bag placed on the floor may receive several seconds of close inspection. A familiar blanket may need only a brief sniff before the cat lies down. Long investigation often appears when the odor contains new information. Familiar material can be processed more quickly because the pattern has already been encountered many times. A study published in 2025 tested whether cats respond differently to familiar and unfamiliar human odors. 30 companion cats took part. Each cat encountered swabs carrying one of 3 samples. One came from the cat's familiar caregiver. A second came from an unfamiliar person of the same sex as that caregiver. The third swab was blank and served as a control. Researchers collected the human samples from 3 parts of the body. They swabbed the area behind an ear, an armpit, and the space between the first and second toes. These locations were chosen because they can hold skin oils and other odor-producing material. During the trials, the swab was presented on a small apparatus where the cat could approach and investigate freely. Across the study, 82 usable recordings were analyzed. The cat spent an average of about 4.82 seconds sniffing the unfamiliar human odor. The familiar caregiver's odor received about 2.4 seconds of investigation. The blank sample received about 1.93 seconds. That difference fits a common pattern in animal behavior. New information often receives more attention. The familiar caregiver's scent may have required less examination because the cat had already learned its general chemical profile through daily life. The result supports the idea that cats can distinguish a familiar human odor from an unfamiliar one. It does not show that a cat can smell a hidden sample and identify the person in the same detailed way a human might recognize a face. The experiment tested familiarity rather than a spoken name or a conscious label. A cat may simply register that one sample belongs to the known social environment, while the other does not. Some cats rub their faces against the apparatus after sniffing. Cats have scent-producing glands around the cheeks, chin, forehead, and lips. When a cat rubs against furniture or a person, material from these glands can be deposited on the surface. The behavior may help create a familiar local odor landscape. Researchers could not confirm that the rubbing in this experiment was a deliberate attempt to mark the unfamiliar smell. It remains a useful observation with more than one possible explanation. Inside a home, Odor recognition develops through thousands of ordinary contacts. A caregiver's scent appears on clothing before breakfast. It remains on bedding through the night. The same profile travels from room to room on hands, shoes, and fabric. Over time, the person becomes part of the cat's stable sensory surroundings. This familiarity can remain present even when the person has stepped outside. A jacket hanging near the door still carries traces of them. Their side of the bed continues to smell different from the unused side. The favored human therefore begins as a recognizable physical pattern spread across the home. Odor provides a quiet form of continuity, although its strongest clues usually remain close to the person or the objects they have touched. Sound can cross walls and close doors, allowing the same individual to become recognizable from much farther away. From another room, a familiar person can remain easy to recognize. Footsteps provide clues, though they can change with shoes, flooring, or the weight of something being carried. A voice carries a more stable set of features. Pitch helps define how high or low it sounds. Rhythm shapes the spacing between words. Resonance gives each voice part of its texture, while habitual intonation creates familiar rises and falls. Even the same short name can sound different when spoken by two people. Daily repetition allows a cat to learn those differences. A caregiver may call from the kitchen every morning. The same voice may speak softly before opening a door, or use a brighter tone when a toy appears. Over months and years, these sounds become connected to one individual and to the events that often follow. Researchers tested feline voice recognition in 2013. Companion cats listened to recordings while resting in familiar surroundings. Several unfamiliar people called each cat's name. The caregiver's recording appeared later in the sequence. Most cats did not race toward the speaker or produce a dramatic greeting. Their responses were much smaller. An ear turned toward the sound. The head shifted slightly. Some cats moved their body or changed the direction of their gaze. These quiet reactions still carried useful information. The cats responded differently when the familiar voice appeared, even though the person was absent. Recognition can happen without a large outward performance. A human might expect a cat to come when called. The cat may already know exactly who is speaking, while choosing to remain on the windowsill. Hearing the correct voice and following a request involves separate processes. Recognition concerns identity. Approach depends on motivation, comfort, current activity, and what the cat expects to happen after moving. A warm sleeping place may hold more value than crossing the room. An unfamiliar sound nearby can keep attention focused elsewhere. Previous experience also matters. A cat that has learned that its name predicts medication may react differently from one whose name usually predicts food or play. The sound still belongs to the same person. Its meaning has been shaped by the events attached to it. A later experiment, published in 2022, examines something more personal than simple voice identity. 16 indoor companion cats heard people speaking in two different styles. One style was ordinary speech directed toward another adult. The other was cat-directed speech, the special tone many people naturally use with their pets. Cat-directed speech often has a higher pitch, wider changes in pitch, and shorter phrases. Researchers played both styles using the caregiver's voice and the voice of an unfamiliar person. 10 of the 16 cats increased their behavioral response when the playback changed from a stranger to their caregiver. The measured signs included ear orientation, tail activity, movement, and changes in the pupils. Some cats paused what they were doing. Others turned toward the speaker or moved closer. The reaction pattern became especially important when the familiar caregiver switched between ordinary adult-directed speech and the style normally used for the cat. The cats distinguished those two forms more clearly when their own person was speaking. A stranger using the same broad vocal style did not produce the same consistent effect. This suggests that a cat learns more than the general sound of baby-like speech. It can learn the particular version used inside one relationship. A caregiver may stretch the cat's name in a familiar way. Certain phrases may always appear before dinner. Another tone may accompany slow petting on the sofa. Through repetition, the speaker and speaking style become linked. The favored person's voice, therefore, carries several layers at once. It identifies who is nearby. It can predict an activity. Its tone may show whether the person is addressing the cat or speaking to someone else. These layers help turn one human voice into a distinct household event. The cat does not need to understand every word. Stable sound patterns can still reveal who is present and what may happen soon. That ability reaches beyond recognition when the speaker cannot be seen. A voice coming through a wall has a direction and an expected location. Once the cat connects a known voice with a place, an unseen person can remain part of the cat's internal map. A familiar voice can do more than reveal who is speaking. Its direction also tells the cat where that person seems to be. Sound reaches the two ears at slightly different times and strengths. The brain compares those tiny differences to estimate direction. A cat's outer ears can rotate toward a sound, helping sharpen that estimate without requiring the whole head to move. Locating a voice, however, is only the first step. The cat may also connect that sound with a continuing idea of the person who produced it. Researchers explored this ability in 2021 through an experiment sometimes described as impossible teleportation. 50 cats took part in the first part of the study. Some were companion cats living in private homes. Others lived in Japanese cat cafes, where many familiar cats and people share the same indoor space. Each cat entered a room it already knew. 2 speakers had been placed in separate locations, far enough apart to suggest that a person could not move between them instantly. The cat's caregiver had been recorded calling its name. Each recorded call lasted an average of about 1.24 seconds. At first, the familiar voice played 5 times from the same speaker. Repeated exposure allowed the cat to become accustomed to hearing its caregiver in that location. This process is called habituation. Habituation occurs when a repeated event produces less response because it remains unchanged and harmless. A cat may turn toward the first call. By the 4th or 5th repetition, it may barely move an ear. Once the cats had become familiar with the sound and its position, a new recording played. Sometimes the same caregiver's voice came from the original speaker. In other trials, the caregiver's voice suddenly came from the distant speaker. The researchers also tested recordings made by unfamiliar people. The strongest surprise appeared when the known caregiver seemed to jump from one location to the other without enough time to cross the room. The cats could not see a person moving, They had only the sequence of voices. Even so, their reactions suggested that the familiar human had been mentally connected to the first location. When the same voice appeared somewhere else almost immediately, the expected map no longer made sense. The response was usually subtle. A cat might turn its head quickly, move its ears, or stare toward the new speaker. Some shifted position or appeared briefly tense. To reduce the chance of personal bias, people who did not know which trial the cat had experienced later watched recordings of the reactions. These blind raters scored how surprised each cat appeared. Blind rating means the observer lacks the information that could influence their judgment. The pattern remained strongest during the apparent teleportation of the caregiver. Researchers call this kind of ability sociospatial cognition. Social refers to another living individual. Spatial refers to location. Together, the term describes an animal keeping track of where a familiar individual should be, even while that individual is hidden from view. The same clear reaction did not appear as strongly when ordinary non-social sounds shifted between speakers. A familiar electronic noise or object sound did not carry the same connection to a living body moving through space. This difference matters because a voice contains both sound and identity. The cat has heard that person speaking while entering rooms, walking down halls, and opening doors. Repeated experience teaches that the voice belongs to a body that occupies one place at a time. A caregiver who leaves the living room does not vanish from the cat's world. Their footsteps continue upstairs. A voice from the kitchen updates the expected location. Silence may leave the last known position unchanged until another clue arrives. The cat's internal representation is probably simpler than a human's detailed mental picture. The experiment does not show that cats imagine a complete face or body behind the wall. It supports a more focused ability. The known person remains linked to an expected place. This makes the caregiver part of the cat's surroundings even during brief absences from sight. A bedroom door can close while the person remains socially present. The cat may wait outside because it heard the voice settle there. It may walk toward the kitchen before the person appears because familiar sounds have already placed them nearby. Once the cat can track who is present and where they should be, daily life supplies another layer of information. The person's location begins to predict the movements and events that usually follow. A moment later, the familiar person appears in the doorway. Their voice came from the kitchen, and now their body follows. The cat has seen this sequence many times. A hand reaches toward the cupboard. A bowl is lifted from the counter. Soft footsteps move toward the usual feeding place. Each event helps predict the one that follows. Cats learn these patterns through repeated experience. One important form of learning is called classical conditioning. This happens when an ordinary event begins to predict something meaningful. A cupboard hinge has no natural connection to food. After hundreds of mornings, its squeak may cause the cat to look up before the bowl appears. The sound has become a reliable signal. A laptop closing can predict that a person will soon stand and walk toward the bedroom. A certain sentence may come before a door opens. The click of a drawer may announce a wand toy. Through repetition, neutral sounds and movements gain meaning. This kind of learning is sometimes called Pavlovian conditioning. The name comes from the Russian scientist Ivan Pavlov, whose famous experiments in the late 19th and early 20th centuries showed how animals learn links between events. The same basic process takes place quietly inside a home. No formal lesson is required. Ordinary routines provide thousands of small learning trials. Another process, called operant learning, connects a cat's own behavior with what happens afterward. A cat sits beside one person and receives slow strokes along the cheeks. That pleasant consequence makes the same approach more likely in the future. A meow near the kitchen causes another person to prepare breakfast. Carrying a toy towards someone makes the toy begin moving across the floor. The result that follows a behavior is called a consequence. When a consequence makes the behavior more likely to happen again, it acts as reinforcement. Reinforcement can involve food, play, warmth, access to a room, or gentle social contact. The cat may also learn which actions lead nowhere. A person who never opens the balcony door after hearing a meow may receive fewer requests over time. Someone who responds every morning teaches the cat that persistence often works. People sometimes believe a cat has trained them. From a learning perspective, both sides are responding to consequences. The cat changes its behavior according to human reactions. The human begins to recognize which sounds or movements produce a particular feline response. Daily timing adds another layer. Cats do not need to read the numbers on a clock to anticipate events. Light grows brighter near dawn. An alarm sounds from the same table. Water runs in the shower, followed by footsteps toward the kitchen. These cues form an ordered chain. The time of day is carried through changing light, household noise, body activity, and the sequence of familiar actions. Even small appliances can become part of the pattern. A coffee maker may begin before breakfast. A television turning off can predict a quieter room. The low sound of a computer fan stopping may mean that evening work has ended. Some cues occur only once each day, while others repeat several times. Habituation helps the cat ignore signals that remain harmless and unimportant. A refrigerator hum may fade into the background because it rarely predicts anything useful. The opening of that same refrigerator receives more attention because food sometimes follows. Prediction helps the cat spend attention efficiently. There is less need to examine every movement from the beginning. The person who follows stable routines becomes easier to forecast. Their approach has a known speed. Their voice usually leads to familiar outcomes. Their position in the room often tells the cat what kind of interaction is likely. This predictability can reduce uncertainty. A sudden hand from an unfamiliar visitor requires careful watching. The same movement from a trusted caregiver may already belong to a well-learned sequence that ends with a toy placed on the floor. Familiarity begins to carry a sense of security because the immediate future becomes easier to understand. The person has developed a recognizable rhythm inside the home. Even so, prediction has no positive value by itself. A cat can accurately predict an unpleasant event and choose to leave before it happens. Closeness grows when the expected outcome is something the cat is motivated to seek. The cupboard opens, and the cat appears almost immediately. Food is one of the strongest rewards in an animal's daily life. A meal restores energy, supports body heat, and provides the protein a cat's tissues need. Because domestic cats are obligate carnivores, their bodies depend on nutrients found naturally in animal tissue. These include taurine, certain fatty acids, and preformed vitamin A. A person who reliably provides meals can therefore become highly important. The sound of a can opening may bring the cat running from another floor. Footsteps near the feeding area can produce a raised tail or a series of quick meows. These behaviors show that the cat has learned a valuable prediction. They reveal only part of the relationship. Consider the same home several hours after breakfast. The bowl is empty, the kitchen is quiet, and the person who served the meal is busy elsewhere. The cat enters another room and settles beside someone who has provided no food that day. That afternoon choice is being shaped by a different reward. The person may offer warmth, a familiar voice, or a place where the cat can rest without interruption. Social contact itself can carry value. Researchers examined this idea in a preference study published in 2017. The study included companion cats living in homes and cats living in shelters. Each animal was offered choices from 4 broad categories. These categories were human social interaction, food, toys, and scent. The testing began within each category. A cat encountered 3 different food options. For example, allowing researchers to identify which one it preferred. The same process was used with the other categories. Social options could include attention from a person, gentle petting, or vocal interaction. Toy choices involved different objects or styles of play. Scent options gave the cat odors to investigate. After the preferred item from each category had been identified, those 4 winners were placed in competition. The cat could then choose between its favorite food, preferred social interaction, selected toy, and chosen scent. Human social interaction was the top category for the majority of the cats that completed the assessment. Food came second overall. The general pattern appeared in both the owned cats and the shelter cats. There was still considerable variation between individuals. Some cats selected food most often. Others placed greater value on play or on a particular kind of contact. Social interaction also meant different things to different cats. One animal might prefer cheek strokes. Another could value a person speaking nearby without touching. A more active cat might choose attention that leads into movement and play. This variation helps explain why one human behavior cannot win every cat's trust. The rewarding experience has to fit the individual animal. Conditioning can gradually transfer some of that reward to the person who provides it. At first, a human may matter because their arrival predicts dinner. Over time, the sound of their voice and the sight of them entering the room can become pleasant signals of their own. The person has been repeatedly linked with satisfying outcomes. Their presence begins to carry part of the value once supplied by food, warmth, access, or attention. This process is sometimes called conditioned reinforcement. A previously neutral signal gains value by being paired with something the animal already wants. The relationship can then continue during moments when the original reward is absent. A cat may approach the feeder after eating. It may sit beside a familiar caregiver while the bowl remains untouched. The learned value of that person now reaches beyond one practical service. Resources still matter. Regular meals and safe shelter provide the foundation of a cat's life with humans. A fuller bond develops when one person becomes associated with several forms of comfort across many settings. That wider value helps explain why cats sometimes choose someone who rarely fills the bowl. The human may offer the most satisfying play, the calmest resting place, or the clearest response to a small social signal. A person becomes especially rewarding when they can do more than place an object on the floor. They can join the cat inside an activity that already carries strong biological motivation. For a small hunter, few activities are more deeply built into the body than watching, stalking, and capturing something that moves. The drawer opens, and a wand toy slides into view. A small bundle of feathers hangs from the end of a cord. The cat's body changes before the toy has moved very far. Its ears turn forward. Its eyes fix on the target. The shoulders lower, while the hind legs fold beneath the body. Play has recruited parts of the same predatory system used to catch living prey. A hunting sequence often begins with orientation. The cat notices movement and turns toward it. Watching may continue for several seconds while distance, speed, and direction are judged. The body then lowers into a crouch, reducing its outline and preparing the rear legs to push forward. During stalking, the cat advances with slow steps and carefully placed paws. A sudden movement can trigger a chase. The cat may pounce, close the front paws around the target, and bring the mouth forward for a bite. These actions do not always appear in one complete, fixed order. A cat may skip the stalk and leap immediately. Another may spend most of the game watching from beneath a chair. An older cat can remain almost still until the toy passes within reach. The sequence changes with age, health, energy, past success, and the type of object being used. Human timing changes it as well. A toy held directly against the cat's face can remove much of the work that makes pursuit interesting. The target never needs to be located. There is no useful distance to judge. The cat receives little chance to hide, wait, or choose the moment of attack. Some cats respond by turning away. Others become overstimulated because the object keeps pressing into their personal space. Prey-like movement creates a different experience. A wand toy can travel along the floor, pause beside a table leg, and disappear behind a box. The cat now has incomplete information. It must watch for the object to reappear or move closer to investigate. A brief change in direction can trigger pursuit. Small pauses allow tension to build without forcing constant activity. A successful pounce should sometimes end with capture. The cat needs a chance to pin the toy, hold it between the front paws, and bite before the game continues. Permanent escape can become frustrating because the final part of the action pattern never arrives. Constant capture can also reduce interest because the target offers no challenge. A responsive person adjusts the balance. The toy moves faster when the cat is ready to chase. It slows when the cat begins watching from cover. The session can pause after a strong pounce, rather than continuing until the animal loses interest. This coordination turns play into a shared activity. The human supplies movement, while the cat controls much of the timing. Fetching offers an especially clear example. A study published in 2023 collected reports from 924 owners. Together, they described 1,154 cats that fetched objects. The reported items included toys, crumpled paper, household objects, and small balls. In 94.4% of the reports, fetching appeared without deliberate training. The cats began carrying objects back even though no person had taught the behavior through a formal step-by-step method. Fetching was most often first noticed either before the cat reached 1 year of age or sometime between 1 and 7 years. Owners also reported that cats usually initiated the sessions and decided when they ended. A cat might place a toy near a person, wait for it to be thrown, and retrieve it several times. Later, it could keep the object or walk away while the human remained ready to continue. The study relied on owner reports rather than controlled observation in a laboratory. It cannot tell us how common fetching is across the entire cat population. It does show that shared games can develop in many forms and often remain strongly directed by the cat. The person who notices these preferences becomes more useful as a partner. They learn which object produces interest. They recognize when stillness means preparation rather than boredom. They allow capture before restarting the movement. Repeated sessions create a history of successful coordination. The human becomes linked with an activity that is rewarding in its own right. Food may appear at the end of the game, but the chase and capture already engage systems shaped by millions of years of small prey hunting. A skilled play partner offers something a filled bowl cannot provide. The cat can test its speed, timing, and control while another individual adjusts the game in response. Over time, very small signals begin to guide the exchange. A glance toward the drawer can request the toy. A pause beside the sofa may tell the person where the next movement should begin. Those signals gain meaning inside one relationship because both participants have learned how the other responds. The toy comes to rest beside the sofa. For several seconds, the cat remains crouched with one paw touching it. Then it looks toward the person. That glance may ask for the game to continue. In another household, the same look could mean that the toy should be thrown across the room. A different cat might glance away to signal that the session has ended. The movement gains meaning through its history inside that particular relationship. Small signals become useful when they lead to dependable consequences. A cat may produce one short meow beside the back door, because that sound has often caused someone to open it. Placing a paw beside a toy can bring the person's hand toward the object. Waiting near a cupboard may cause a familiar packet to appear. When the human responds in a consistent way, the behavior becomes a more reliable request. The learning also moves in the other direction. A person notices that a fast tail movement often appears before the cat leaves. A brief pause near the hallway may predict a run toward the bedroom. The cat's ears turning toward the toy drawer can show interest before the body moves. Repeated observation allows both participants to predict what the other is likely to do. This private communication does not require human grammar. Its signals can be physical, vocal, or tied to a location. Their meaning comes from shared experience. Someone visiting the home may hear two similar meows and notice no difference. The familiar caregiver may know that one usually appears before play, while the other occurs near an empty water bowl. Tone, timing, location, and body position all help separate them. The human voice develops a relationship-specific pattern as well. Earlier, we saw that cats can distinguish the speech their caregiver directs toward them from ordinary conversation. The useful clue includes more than the identity of the speaker. A person may raise the pitch slightly, stretch the cat's name, or use a familiar short phrase. Those features have occurred during hundreds of direct interactions. The cat learns that this version of the voice is meant for it. Eye movement can become part of the exchange. A study published in 2020 examined the slow blink, a common sequence in which the eyelids partly close before the eyes remain narrowed or close more fully. The first experiment involved 21 cats from 14 households. Each cat was tested in a familiar room at home. The caregiver sat about 1 meter away and performed slow blinks after gaining the cat's attention. During a comparison condition, the caregiver remained nearby, without directing this facial signal toward the animal. Cats produced more half blinks and eye narrowing, while their caregivers slow blinked at them. The response was measured from video, rather than judged only from casual observation. A second experiment used 24 different cats from 8 households. Their ages ranged from about 1 year to 17 years. This time, an unfamiliar researcher performed the slow blink. Afterward, the researcher extended a hand toward the cat. During the comparison trial, the same person held a neutral expression and avoided direct staring. The cats were more likely to move toward the offered hand after the slow blink exchange. They also produced more half blinks and eye narrowing during that condition. These results support slow blinking as a possible form of positive communication between cats and humans. The movement should still be interpreted with care. Scientists have not established a fixed translation equal to a human sentence, such as, "I love you." Eye narrowing may communicate comfort, reduce threat, or willingness to interact. Its meaning also depends on the surrounding posture and situation. A tense cat pressed into a corner requires a different interpretation from one resting loosely on a familiar bed. The slow blink demonstrates how communication can move in both directions. A human offers a gentle visual signal. The cat changes its own eyes and may become more willing to approach. Repeated exchanges can make the sequence increasingly familiar inside the pair. Over time, the person learns which pauses invite another movement and which changes signal enough. The cat learns that this individual notices small requests and often answers them accurately. Each successful exchange makes the two participants easier for one another to read. That growing clarity can support trust, though communication only remains useful when every message receives proper attention. Some signals invite closeness. Others ask for space. The person who becomes safest is often the one who responds to both kinds with equal care. The cat's eyes narrow after the final slow blink. A hand moves forward and strokes the side of its face. For a few moments, the contact remains welcome. Then the cat turns its head away. Its front paws shift closer to the edge of the cushion. The body leans just far enough to place more distance between fur and fingers. These movements can be easy to miss. One person may follow the cat with the hand and continue touching. A more observant person lets the hand fall still. That small difference changes what the cat learns. When leaving remains easy, a quiet signal can complete the interaction. A turn of the head may be enough. The cat does not need to run, hide, or defend the space around its body. Its first request has already worked. Ignored signals can produce a stronger response. The ears may flatten or rotate toward the sides. A tail can begin moving with short, sharp swings. Muscles become tense beneath the coat. If the hand continues, the cat may hiss, swat, or bite to create distance. Animal behavior specialists sometimes call these distance-increasing behaviors. Their purpose is clear from the name. They encourage another animal or a person to move farther away. A hiss often appears late in the sequence, after several quieter signs have failed. This makes control an important part of feline trust. Control does not mean that the cat directs every event in the household. It means the animal has some ability to regulate how close an interaction becomes and how long it continues. An approach feels less risky when departure remains possible. Researchers have tested this principle through a simple set of instructions known as the CAT guidelines. The letters stand for choice and control, attention to body language and touch. Choice and control mean allowing the cat to approach first, whenever possible. The person offers a hand and waits rather than reaching across the animal's body. A cat that walks away is allowed to leave without being followed. Attention means watching posture throughout the exchange. A loose body and forward-facing ears can support continued contact. A tightening body or turning head may signal that the interaction should change. Touch is directed mainly toward areas many cats commonly accept, especially around the cheeks and the base of the ears. These guidelines were examined in a study involving 100 shelter cats. The cats met 120 unfamiliar members of the public. Each interaction lasted 5 minutes, and some cats completed as many as 6 sessions. This produced 535 observations for researchers to study. During some sessions, visitors received brief guidance on how to follow the cat approach. Other interactions took place without that training. The instructed visitors gave the cats more control over contact. They waited more often, watched body language, and reduced intrusive handling. The cats responded with more positive and friendly behavior. They also showed less aggression and fewer signs of inner conflict. Conflict-related behavior can appear when an animal feels pulled between approaching and escaping. A cat may want social contact while also feeling uncertain about the way it is being touched. The study produced an especially useful result. Physical contact actually lasted longer during the unguided interactions. More touching did not produce more positive feline behavior. The cats behaved better when the contact was shorter, more selective, and easier to end. Quality depended on timing and responsiveness. A person can therefore build trust through restraint. Remaining still gives the cat room to decide. Ending a stroke after the first sign of discomfort teaches that subtle communication works. Future approaches become safer because closeness has not repeatedly led to unwanted restraint. This can explain why a cat returns to someone who rarely picks it up. That person may provide less total contact while offering greater control during every visit. Another household member might pet the cat for longer and still receive fewer voluntary approaches. The cat remembers the consequence attached to each interaction. With one person, moving away ends the contact. With another, moving away causes the hand to follow. Over time, these differences shape who feels safest to approach. The human who pauses is actively contributing to the bond. A quiet response shows that the cat's body remains its own space. Trust grows because the animal can regulate the intensity of closeness without needing stronger defensive behavior. That process depends on noticing discomfort early. A person can respect the decision to stop only after learning where the first signs appear and which parts of the body become sensitive most quickly. The hand stays where it is. After a short pause, the cat steps closer and presses one cheek against a waiting finger. Its forehead follows, sliding beneath the still palm. This contact begins with the cat's own movement, which gives it control over the location, pressure, and length of the touch. Cats often rub socially with areas around the face. Scent-producing glands are found near the cheeks, lips, chin, and forehead. When a cat presses these regions against a person or object, the movement may leave behind tiny amounts of chemical material. The rubbing also provides pressure against parts of the body that many cats seem to enjoy having touched. For this reason, the cheeks and forehead are often good places to begin gentle petting. The area near the base of the ears is commonly accepted as well. Some cats enjoy slow contact beneath the chin, especially when the hand approaches from the side and remains visible. These patterns helped shape the touch part of the cat guidelines. The guidance places early contact mainly around the temporal regions, meaning the sides of the head near the cheeks and ears. The person still has to watch the individual cat throughout the exchange. A location preferred by many cats can remain unpleasant to one particular animal. Touch changes meaning across the body. A stroke along the back may feel comfortable at first and become irritating after several repetitions. Contact along the flanks can produce a stronger response because the hand passes across a broad, sensitive surface. Legs and paws often receive less voluntary social touching during ordinary feline interactions. Many cats pull a foot away quickly when the toes are held. The abdomen can be especially complicated. A cat lying on its back may be stretching, cooling itself, or showing that it feels safe enough to expose a vulnerable area. The posture does not automatically invite a hand toward the belly. Responses near the tail also vary. Some cats raise the hindquarters when stroked near the tail base. Others turn sharply toward the hand or move away after only a moment. Health can change these preferences. Arthritis may make pressure over the spine or hips uncomfortable. A skin condition can make light stroking irritating. Dental pain or an ear infection can turn a normally accepted head touch into something the cat avoids. Age, injury, and recent veterinary treatment can all redraw the cat's physical map. Pressure matters alongside location. A fingertip resting lightly on the cheek produces a different sensation from firm rubbing with the whole hand. Speed changes the experience as well. Slow, predictable strokes allow the cat to anticipate where the hand will travel. Fast movements may increase arousal or surprise the animal. Duration can turn pleasant contact into too much stimulation. A cat may enjoy the first 5 strokes and begin withdrawing on the 6th. The earliest signs can be very small. Relaxed movement may suddenly stop. A ripple can pass through the skin along the back. The tail begins to wave with greater force. Ears rotate outward or angle backward. The cat may turn its head toward the hand, lick its nose, or groom one patch of fur abruptly. Muscles can tighten before the body shifts toward the edge of the furniture. These signals allow the person to end contact before the cat needs to hiss or swat. Purring does not erase the rest of the body language. Cats purr during comfortable social contact, though the same sound can occur during pain, stress, illness, or recovery. Its meaning becomes clearer when read beside posture, ear position, movement, and the cat's willingness to remain. A loose body that leans into the hand provides a different picture from a tense cat whose tail is striking the cushion. The person a cat prefers may be the one who has learned this physical geography most accurately. That person remembers that cheek contact is welcome while paw handling is brief. They notice when a longer stroke begins to change the tail. Their hand stops before discomfort becomes a struggle. The cat receives a predictable sensory experience shaped around its individual boundaries. Touch then becomes one part of the relationship rather than the entire measure of it. A cat can leave the hand, cross a small space, and remain nearby. Once physical contact is no longer treated as the only proof of affection, the distance the cat chooses begins to carry much more information. The cat steps down from the cushion and moves across the room. It does not disappear through the doorway. Instead, it circles once on a second chair and settles where it can still see the person. The space between them may be about 2 meters. For a cat, that distance can still be strongly social. Remaining nearby preserves access to familiar scent and sound. The person's breathing continues in the background. A page turns. Clothing carries the same odor pattern the cat already knows. Visual contact allows the cat to notice when the person stands, reaches toward a drawer, or begins moving toward another room. At the same time, the open space gives the animal control. It can approach without climbing down from a lap. It can leave without pushing past an arm. The cat can rest while keeping an escape route clear. Distance helps regulate the intensity of companionship. Full body contact creates warmth, pressure, and constant sensory input. A single paw resting against a leg produces much less stimulation. Sharing one sofa can offer closeness, while leaving each body its own area. Occupying the same small room provides a quieter form of connection. Some cats choose a shelf or the back of a chair above the person. Height gives a wider view of the room and reduces the chance of being surprised from behind. Other cats follow a caregiver from the kitchen to the bedroom, then settle several steps away each time. The pattern of movement may show a desire to remain socially connected, even when direct touch is absent. Temperature also changes the preferred distance. Cats generally seek warmer resting places than humans do. A lap may become especially attractive in a cool room. On a hot afternoon, the tile floor 2 meters away may offer better comfort while the cat still remains near the same person. Body position adds more information. A cat resting on its side with loose muscles is showing a different level of ease from one crouched tightly, with its paws hidden beneath the chest. Ears held in a neutral position, and slow, steady breathing support the picture of relaxed proximity. A tense body facing the doorway may show that the cat is monitoring the environment rather than settling into social rest. The layout of the room matters as well. A chair beside a wall can feel safer because nothing can approach from behind. A place near a doorway allows quick movement into the hall. A high shelf offers distance from children or another pet. These practical features can influence where the cat rests, so one position should never be interpreted in isolation. Repeated choice carries more weight. Suppose 2 chairs offer similar height, warmth, and softness. The cat repeatedly selects the one beside a particular person. That pattern becomes more informative because the main physical options are roughly equal. The same is true when the cat follows one household member between rooms, despite having access to comfortable resting places elsewhere. Choice reveals more when reasonable alternatives remain available. Research on cat-human interaction often pays close attention to who begins contact and who ends it. Disturbing a resting cat can reduce the value of proximity. A person who reaches across the gap every few minutes may teach the cat that sitting nearby leads to unwanted touch. Someone who allows the cat to remain undisturbed makes the same area easier to choose again. Responsiveness shapes the pattern. The person notices when the cat moves closer. They also notice when it settles at a distance. Both positions are accepted without pressure to turn every visit into petting. This gives the cat several ways to participate in the relationship. A close bond can include lap-sitting on one evening and quiet room sharing on another. Physical comfort, alertness, temperature, and recent activity can shift the preferred spacing from hour to hour. The underlying social choice may remain stable even while the exact distance changes. Human expectations can make these signals easy to overlook. Many people picture affection as a cat curled directly against the body. Feline companionship often occupies a wider area. A cat resting within sight, choosing the same room, or moving through the home beside one person may be maintaining contact in a form that suits its sensory limits. 2 meters of open floor can preserve both connection and control. Calm moments reveal where the cat prefers to rest when little is happening. A sudden unfamiliar sound or object can change the value of that nearby person. Under uncertainty, proximity may become more than companionship. The cat may use the human's reaction as part of its own decision about whether the situation is safe. A sudden mechanical hum begins near the far wall. A small fan has been placed on the floor, with light ribbons tied to its front. The blades turn behind a protective cover. Air pushes the ribbons outward, making them flutter in uneven bursts. For the cat, this object is difficult to classify at first. Its movement resembles something alive, though the body shape is unfamiliar. The sound could belong to a harmless machine or to something worth avoiding. Nothing in the room provides an immediate answer. The cat may crouch, lean forward, or take one careful step closer. Its eyes remain fixed on the fan. Then the head turns toward the caregiver. A moment later, the cat looks back at the moving ribbons. This pattern is called social referencing. It happens when an animal faces an uncertain event and checks the reaction of a familiar individual for extra information. The other individual's expression, voice, posture, or movement becomes one clue among several. Researchers have studied this behavior in cats using an unfamiliar fan decorated with moving ribbons. The object was harmless, though it produced enough sound and motion to create uncertainty. 24 cats were included in the main analysis. 79% looked back and forth between the fan and their caregiver. 54% showed fuller gaze alternation sequences, shifting attention from the object to the person and then back again. That repeated movement mattered. The cat was monitoring 2 sources of information at once. One source was the object itself. Its speed, noise, direction, and distance could all be examined directly. The caregiver supplied a social source of information. During the experiment, owners were asked to react in either a positive or negative way. A positive message included a relaxed face and a reassuring tone. The negative condition used a more worried expression and a voice that suggested caution. Some parts of the cat's behavior changed according to the message their caregiver gave. The effects remained modest. Cats did not respond as though they had received a simple command to approach or retreat. Their behavior showed a quieter adjustment in caution and attention. This distinction is important. A cat can use a person's reaction without fully understanding every human emotion in the same way another person would. The animal may notice broad features such as vocal tension, facial movement, body stiffness, or calm posture. These signals can shift the balance between curiosity and avoidance. Suppose the caregiver remains seated with loose shoulders and speaks softly. The cat still watches the fan, though it may move closer or remain in the room longer. A tense voice and sudden movement could increase caution. The human response does not replace the cat's own sensory judgment. It becomes part of the evidence being gathered. Familiarity probably increases the value of this information. A caregiver's normal voice and posture have been observed across many ordinary situations. The cat has seen that person react to visitors, falling objects, household appliances, and unfamiliar sounds outside. Over time, the animal can learn whether that person's calm behavior usually appears in safe conditions. The caregiver therefore becomes useful in a new way. Food gives energy. Play provides movement and practice. Gentle touch can offer comfort. During uncertainty, a familiar person can help the cat decide how carefully to proceed. This informational role may be especially important in a home filled with human-made objects. Vacuum cleaners, doorbells, delivery boxes, ceiling fans, and electronic sounds have no close match in the environment where wild cats evolved. A domestic cat must repeatedly judge whether each new event deserves attention. The response of a trusted human can make that judgment easier. Cats still vary widely in how often they seek this guidance. One animal may look toward a caregiver almost immediately. Another may rely more heavily on distance, hiding places, or direct investigation. Early handling, inherited temperament, and later experience can all influence that difference. The willingness to use a person as a source of safety begins taking shape long before many cats enter their permanent homes. The adult cat watching the unfamiliar fan carries a history that began during its first weeks of life. Long before the current caregiver opened a food packet or offered a hand, the kitten was learning which sights, sounds, smells, and living creatures belong to a safe world. A newborn kitten enters that world with its eyes closed and hearing still developing. The eyes usually begin opening during the second week. Walking becomes steadier over the following weeks, while curiosity brings the kitten farther from the nest. During this early period, the developing brain is especially ready to sort common experiences from possible threats. For contact with humans, sensitivity is thought to be particularly high from about 2 through 7 weeks of age. Researchers often call this the main socialization window. Socialization is the process through which a young animal becomes familiar with the beings, handling, places, and ordinary events it may encounter later. A kitten gently held by several calm people during these weeks receives repeated evidence that human scent, voices, hands, and movement can be safe. One with little human contact receives far less information. The window does not slam shut on an exact morning. Openness declines gradually as the kitten grows. Learning continues afterward, though unfamiliar experiences may require more time and more careful repetition. Developmental research by Sandra McCoon helped show how early handling can remain visible much later. The work compared kittens that received regular human handling with kittens that had very limited handling. Contact took place between 2 and 12 weeks of age. The researchers also included kittens fathered by males, described as friendly or unfriendly toward people. This allowed early experience and inherited temperament to be examined within the same broader project. When the cats were tested at 1 year of age, the handled group behaved more socially toward people. They approached a test person sooner. Contact such as touching and rubbing occurred more quickly. The socialized cats vocalized more during the encounter and spent longer within 1 meter of the person. 1 meter is close enough for a cat to receive detailed scent, movement, and vocal information, while still keeping room to step away. The difference had lasted well beyond kittenhood. Early handling had helped calibrate the human body as something familiar enough to approach and investigate. Calibration here means adjusting a response system through experience. A young brain repeatedly exposed to gentle contact can lower the level of caution attached to similar contact later. The process does not erase the animal's ability to protect itself. It changes the starting point from which a new person is judged. The paternal result added another layer. Kittens fathered by a male rated as friendly also tended to show greater ease around people. This appeared even though fathers usually play little or no direct role in raising domestic kittens. The pattern therefore suggested an inherited contribution to sociability. Genes can influence traits such as boldness, sensitivity to novelty, and the speed at which an animal becomes comfortable. The response to unfamiliar objects did not match the human social pattern in every detail. A kitten could be relatively open toward people, while remaining cautious around a strange object. That separation matters because friendliness is not one single trait applied equally to everything. Human approach, object exploration, and tolerance of handling can develop through partly different systems. Maternal care, nutrition, illness, litter size, housing, and later experience can add further differences. 2 kittens raised in the same building may still leave it with noticeably different levels of confidence. Later reinforcement continues shaping those starting tendencies. A cautious cat adopted at 6 months can learn that a new caregiver moves slowly and stops when the cat withdraws. Several months of predictable meals and undisturbed resting places may produce steady progress. Some cats begin approaching within days. Others need many weeks before remaining in the same room. The length of that process says little about gratitude or affection. It reflects the amount of evidence the animal needs before updating an older expectation. This gives a cautious adult cat a more accurate history. Its distance from a hand may come from limited early exposure, inherited sensitivity, or past handling that felt difficult to escape. A careful caregiver begins working from that developmental starting point. Patience supplies new trials without demanding an immediate result. Broad comfort with humans, however, still leaves room for preference. A well-socialized cat may accept several people and continue choosing one of them most often. That narrower choice depends on how the cat's individual temperament fits the different human styles around it. Two people can treat the same cat with equal kindness and receive very different responses. One enters the room quickly, speaks in a bright voice, lifts the cat onto a lap, and begins an energetic game. The other sits down slowly, leaves an open space nearby, and waits for the cat to approach. A bold, active cat may hurry toward the first person. A cautious animal may choose the quieter human and remain several feet away before moving closer. Both people are offering attention. The difference lies in how each style feels to that individual cat. Temperament describes relatively stable patterns in how an animal reacts to the world. Some cats investigate a delivery box within seconds. Others watch it from a doorway for half an hour. One cat may greet visitors with an upright tail, while a littermate disappears beneath the bed as soon as unfamiliar footsteps enter the hall. These differences can involve fearfulness, activity, sociability, frustration, aggression, and responses to novelty. Desire for physical contact also varies. A highly social cat may climb onto a person several times each day. Another may prefer a short cheek rub followed by quiet companionship from across the room. Touch that feels comforting to one animal can become overwhelming to another after only a few seconds. Playstyle shows a similar range. Some cats chase a wand toy through several rooms and leap onto furniture. A less active animal may remain hidden beside a table leg, waiting for one carefully timed pounce. The human who matches that rhythm becomes easier to play with. Large studies have helped show how widely feline behavior can vary. In a Finnish survey published in 2019, researchers collected owner reports on more than 5,700 cats. The cats represented 19 breeds or breed groups. Their behavior was compared across 10 broad traits. These included activity, shyness toward people, sociability with humans, aggression, and repetitive behavior. Repetitive behavior is sometimes called stereotypic behavior. It refers to actions repeated in a similar way, without a clear, immediate purpose, such as excessive grooming or persistent wool-sucking. The researchers found average differences among breed groups. Some groups were reported as more active. Others showed higher average levels of shyness or social interest. Several traits also showed measurable heritability. Heritability describes how much variation within a studied population is associated with genetic differences. It does not mean that a trait is fixed at birth. A heritable tendency can still be shaped by handling, housing, health, and daily experience. The study grouped some breeds together because their behavior patterns looked broadly similar. Substantial variation remained inside every group. Two cats of the same breed can differ greatly in confidence, activity, and tolerance of touch. A population average cannot predict exactly how one animal will respond in a living room. Early socialization adds another layer. A genetically cautious kitten that receives gentle handling may become comfortable with familiar people while remaining reserved with strangers. Pain can temporarily change a normally friendly cat's reaction to touch. A recent move may make an active cat more watchful until the new space becomes familiar. Temperament provides tendencies, while life continues adjusting how those tendencies appear. Human behavior enters the same system. Speed matters because rapid movement can raise arousal. Intensity matters because prolonged touch or loud play can exceed the cat's comfort level. Predictability helps the animal prepare for what the person is about to do. Preferred activities shape which human becomes most rewarding. A cat that loves chasing toys may seek the person who understands when to pause and when to move. A cat that values undisturbed rest may spend more time beside someone who reads quietly each evening. The strongest fit develops when the person's natural habits suit the animal with little conflict. A soft-spoken human may become ideal for a shy cat. An energetic person can suit a confident cat that seeks frequent play. Someone who enjoys brief contact may match a cat that dislikes long petting sessions. No single interaction style wins every feline preference. Compatibility grows from the meeting of two individual patterns. This explains why a cat can live safely with several caring people and still approach one more often. Each person moves differently, responds at a different speed, and offers a separate history of outcomes. The cat learns those differences over time. A household may look like one social unit from the outside, while the cat experiences it as a collection of distinct individuals with separate voices, routines, and expectations. A familiar name is spoken from across the room. The cat hears one family member call for another and turns toward the hallway. That sound has appeared beside the same person many times. It has been followed by a particular face entering the room, familiar footsteps on the floor, and a voice answering from another part of the home. Across months or years, the name becomes linked with one individual. Researchers tested this kind of learning in 2022. The experiments examined whether cats connect a familiar spoken name with the appearance of the social partner who usually carries it. A cat first heard a recorded name. A photograph then appeared on the screen of a laptop. During some trials, the voice and image matched. The name of one familiar cat was followed by that cat's face. During other trials, the spoken name was followed by the photograph of a different familiar animal. This created a mismatch between the identity announced by sound and the identity shown by sight. Scientists often measure looking time during experiments like this. An unexpected image may receive a longer look because the animal needs extra time to examine information that conflicts with its prediction. 48 cats took part in the experiment involving familiar companion cats. 19 lived in ordinary households. 29 lived in cat cafes, where many cats share rooms and regularly encounter staff members and visitors. The household cats looked longer at the laptop when a familiar cat's name was followed by the wrong face. Their reactions suggested that the sound had created an expectation about which individual should appear. The cafe cats did not show the same clear mismatch effect. Their social environment may help explain the difference. A household cat often lives with only one or two feline companions. Each name is spoken in a relatively small setting and may be connected with one individual again and again. A cafe cat can live among a much larger group. Names may be spoken while several animals are nearby. Visitors may use them inconsistently or point toward the wrong cat. These noisier patterns can make a spoken label less dependable. The researchers also tested cats with the names and photographs of human family members. 26 household cats participated. Each lived with at least 2 people. The amount of time they had shared a home with those humans ranged from 6 months to 180 months, which is 15 years. The overall human result was more complicated than the companion cat result. Every cat did not show a strong reaction when a human name and face were mismatched. The effect became more noticeable in cats from larger families and in those that had lived with the family for longer periods. More people may create more opportunities to hear names used in natural conversation. A cat living with 4 humans can watch one person call another from a bedroom, kitchen, or hallway. Each exchange joins a sound with a face and a response. Longer cohabitation also provides more repetitions. A name spoken several times each week can occur hundreds of times across a few years. Age and time in the household could not be fully separated in the experiment. Older cats had often lived with their families longer, so the study could not determine which factor contributed more. The pattern still supports a useful mechanism. Repeated observation can connect information arriving through different senses. This is called a cross-modal association. Cross-modal means that the link crosses from one sensory form into another. A spoken name reaches the ears. A face reaches the eyes. Experience teaches that both signals refer to the same social partner. Names are only one part of the cat's household map. A person also has a particular walking rhythm, body shape, scent, voice, schedule, and way of responding. The cat may hear one family member arrive before seeing them. A certain key in the door, followed by heavy steps, predicts one individual. A lighter step and a soft greeting predict someone else. These details keep each person separate in memory. This helps explain how compatibility becomes selective. The cat remembers which human plays at the right speed. It learns who stops petting after the first tail movement. Another person may be connected with the morning meal or the warmest place to sleep. The household contains several familiar humans, each carrying a different history of consequences. One person can become especially important because their identity is attached to a wide range of useful experiences. Another may hold a narrower place connected with one dependable activity. Once people are represented as separate individuals, they can begin filling separate roles in the cat's daily life. By morning, those roles can become easy to see. One person wakes first and enters the kitchen before sunrise. The cat hears the cupboard open, follows close behind, and waits beside the usual feeding place. A second person may still be asleep, even though the cat chooses that person later for play. Someone else works at a desk through the afternoon and offers hours of quiet company. Another family member may be responsible for brushing, medication, nail care, or trips in the carrier. Each person becomes connected with a different set of outcomes. The cat's current needs determine which outcome matters most. Researchers call this a motivational state. A motivational state is the animal's changing readiness to seek a particular resource or activity. Hunger raises the value of food. Energy and alertness can raise the value of movement. Cold temperatures make warmth more attractive. Fatigue increases the appeal of a place where sleep will remain undisturbed. An unfamiliar sound may suddenly make a known voice or familiar body more useful. These changes happen throughout the day. Domestic cats often divide their sleep into many separate periods rather than one long block. A cat may wake from a morning rest ready to eat, spend part of the afternoon watching a window, and become more active again near evening. Its preferred person can shift with those changes. At dawn, the feeder may receive the fastest approach. The cat hears that person move and arrives before the bowl touches the floor. This is a strong preference in that moment, because hunger has increased the value of the entire feeding sequence. Once the meal is finished, the same cat may leave the kitchen and settle beside someone else. The second person speaks less, sits still for long periods, and rarely interrupts sleep. Their value becomes clearer after the immediate need for food has passed. Later, a wand toy comes out. The cat seeks the person who understands how to move it along the floor, pause behind a chair, and allow a successful capture. Another household member might offer the same toy while moving it too quickly, or holding it too close to the cat's face. The object is identical. The quality of the shared activity is different. Care tasks create further divisions. A cat may trust one person during brushing because that person stops before the skin begins to twitch. Medication can create a more complicated association. The person who gives a bitter tablet may receive cautious attention near the usual treatment time, even if the broader relationship remains secure. Carrier trips can become linked with one voice, one closet, or one sequence of movements. A temporary avoidance during that routine does not erase the value of the person in other settings. Preference studies help explain this variety. When cats were allowed to choose among social interaction, food, toys, and scent, the results differed greatly between individuals. Human contact ranked highest overall, though some cats preferred food and others selected a toy or odor more often. The same variation can appear inside one household. A cat that strongly values play may build a special relationship with the most responsive play partner. Another cat may place greater value on calm physical contact. A cautious animal may care most about the person who makes unfamiliar situations easier to judge. These role-based preferences can all be genuine. The cat does not need to treat every family member equally for several relationships to carry value. One human may be preferred during active periods. Another becomes important when the cat is tired. A third person may be approached during uncertainty. The social map has several useful paths through it. An overall favorite becomes easier to recognize when one person is chosen across a wider range of conditions. The cat approaches before food is offered. It rests nearby after play has ended. It seeks the same individual during ordinary calm and during mild uncertainty. No single resource explains every visit. That person has become connected with several rewarding systems at once. Their voice predicts familiar outcomes. Their movements remain understandable. Their responses fit the cat's temperament. The cat can approach for one reason and remain after that reason has disappeared. At this point, the relationship begins to extend beyond a collection of separate rewards. The person may help regulate how the cat behaves in an unfamiliar place, especially after a brief separation. That broader form of security brings feline preference close to what scientists describe as attachment. An unfamiliar room removes many of the rewards that usually shape a cat's daily choices. The feeding bowl is gone. No favorite toy waits beneath the sofa. Familiar windows, sleeping places, and household scent marks have disappeared. The caregiver may be the only part of the environment the cat already knows. At first, the animal might remain close to the person's legs. Its nose moves across the air, while the ears turn toward distant sounds. After a short pause, the cat may begin examining a corner, sniffing the floor, or walking around the edge of the room. This balance between closeness and exploration lies near the center of attachment research. A familiar individual can sometimes act as a secure base. The term describes a relationship in which another individual provides enough safety for normal exploration to continue. The person does not remove every source of stress. Their presence helps the animal regulate its response so curiosity can return. Researchers examined this possibility in cats during a study published in 2019. The test lasted 6 minutes and followed a simple sequence. For the first 2 minutes, the cat and caregiver remained together inside an unfamiliar room. The person sat within a marked area while the cat was free to move. During the second period, the caregiver left, and the cat spent 2 minutes alone. The final 2 minutes began when the person returned. Researchers paid close attention to the reunion. They watched whether the cat approached, maintained contact, avoided the caregiver, or resumed exploring after a brief greeting. The test included kittens and adult companion cats. Among 70 kittens whose behavior could be clearly classified, 64.3% were placed in the secure attachment group. Of 38 classifiable adult cats, 65.8% received the same classification. Securely classified cats often contacted or greeted the caregiver after the separation. Once that connection had been restored, they returned attention to the room. A cat might rub against the person's leg and then walk toward an unfamiliar object. Another could remain nearby for a short time before sniffing the walls again. The caregiver's return appeared to help the cat settle enough for exploration to continue. Other patterns were classified as insecure. Some cats remained highly focused on the caregiver and struggled to move away after reunion. Others avoided contact or showed behavior that did not clearly resolve the stress of separation. These categories were based partly on attachment methods, first developed for human children and later adapted for dogs. The comparison does not mean that cats express security exactly as children or dogs do. A species that often regulates contact through distance may show attachment in quieter ways. Researchers therefore have to decide which feline behaviors carry the most meaning. Scientific results in this area have not always agreed. A study published in 2015 used a version of the strange situation test with 20 cats. That work did not find clear evidence that the owners served as secure attachment figures. Some cats showed more vocal behavior when separated from their owners, though the full pattern did not meet the researchers' standard for secure attachment. Differences between the studies may come from the length and order of the tests. Sample size can affect the result as well. The way researchers code proximity, greeting, exploration, and distress also matters. A cat sitting 1 meter from its caregiver could be using that person for security, while appearing less physically attached than a dog pressed against someone's knees. The field continues trying to create methods suited to feline behavior. In 2024, another secure-based study examined 20 owned cats and 20 shelter cats. Each animal passed through 3 episodes lasting 2 minutes apiece. Work like this helps researchers compare home experience with shelter life and refine which behaviors should count as signs of security. Attachment remains a developing area of cat science, rather than a completely settled label. The central mechanism is still useful. A familiar person can change how safely a cat engages with uncertainty. Food may explain an approach in the kitchen. Play can explain a visit beside the toy drawer. Inside a strange room, those immediate rewards are absent. When the caregiver's return helps the cat resume normal investigation, the relationship is affecting emotional regulation. The favored person may therefore carry value across many situations. Their presence can support contact, rest, and cautious exploration. That broader influence reaches beyond one activity or resource. Even a stable attachment can look different as daily life changes. A cat's body ages. A caregiver's schedule shifts. Homes, routines, and access to familiar spaces can all alter how closeness is expressed over time. Months after the unfamiliar room test, the same cat may be living through a very different daily pattern. A caregiver who once left early each morning begins working from home. Their chair now remains occupied for 8 extra hours, and the cat gains many new chances to rest nearby. In another household, a teenager leaves for school in a different city. The bedroom becomes quiet. Familiar footsteps disappear, and someone else begins serving the evening meal. A change in schedule can gradually reshape which person the cat approaches most often. Learning continues throughout life. Every familiar cue carries a strength built through repetition. When a certain alarm has predicted breakfast for several years, the sound can bring the cat toward the kitchen before anyone stands up. If that sequence stops occurring, the old prediction slowly weakens. Behavior specialists call this extinction. The word describes a learned response fading when the expected result repeatedly fails to appear. The original memory may still remain. A familiar routine can return quickly if the same cue begins producing the old outcome again. New associations grow through the same process. Suppose another household member takes over meals and evening play. Their footsteps near the cupboard begin to matter. Their voice becomes connected with the sound of a food packet. A toy starts moving whenever they sit beside the sofa. Weeks of consistent, rewarding outcomes can give that person a larger place in the cat's daily life. A shift in visible preference may happen without erasing an older attachment. Long histories often persist beneath newer habits. In the 2019 attachment study, kittens were tested again after a 6-week socialization period. Their attachment classifications remained relatively stable overall. That finding came from one experiment and does not prove that every cat develops an unchanging attachment style. It does suggest that deeper patterns of security may update more slowly than ordinary routines. Daily life can change much faster. Moving to a new home removes familiar scent marks and pathways overnight. Furniture occupies different positions. Outdoor sounds arrive through unfamiliar walls. During the first days, one caregiver may become especially important because their voice, clothing, and movements remain recognizable. Another cat may hide until the rooms themselves begin to smell familiar. Adding a second animal can change access to people and resting places. A confident new cat may occupy the sofa beside the caregiver. The resident cat might begin choosing a bedroom or a high shelf instead. This altered distance could reflect competition over space rather than a loss of affection. A new baby changes sound, movement, and household timing. Feeding schedules shift. Doors may remain closed more often. The cat's preferred person can become less available for a period, while another family member provides more predictable contact. Bereavement creates a different disruption. When a person or companion animal disappears permanently, familiar cues continue without their expected ending. A bedroom carries scent after the occupant is gone. Footsteps once heard at a certain hour no longer arrive. Cats can show changes in appetite, sleep, vocal behavior, or social contact after a household loss, though each animal responds differently. Temporary medical care can also reshape behavior. A person giving ear drops twice each day may be avoided near the treatment time. The same cat may still sleep beside that person later in the evening. The negative association can remain tied to a location, object, or sequence, rather than replacing the entire relationship. Aging adds another layer of interpretation. An older cat may stop jumping onto a lap because the height has become difficult. Joint discomfort can make landing painful. Reduced muscle strength may turn a once easy climb into a careful calculation. A small step, low stool, or cushion beside the chair can restore access and reveal that the social preference never disappeared. Hearing changes may reduce doorway greetings because the cat no longer detects the person arriving. Warmer weather can move a sleeping cat from a lap to a cool floor. Dental pain, skin irritation, or arthritis can shorten petting sessions. The body may change how closeness is expressed, while the familiar person retains the same emotional value. Preference, therefore, develops as a living history. Old associations remain, new routines gather strength, and physical conditions alter which behaviors are practical. The most visible choice at one moment may reflect hunger, mobility, temperature, access, or recent experience. Understanding the relationship requires several clues gathered across time. A single change can easily mislead, especially when one familiar behavior has many possible causes. A cat hurries after someone toward the kitchen. From across the room, the movement can look like a clear sign of devotion. The same behavior may have been shaped by breakfast, a cupboard door, or access to a favorite window. Following becomes meaningful only after the likely reward has been considered. Lap sitting carries the same uncertainty. A human body produces warmth, and a lap often places the cat above floor level. The fabric may also matter. A thick fleece blanket can be more attractive than the person beneath it, especially in a cool room. Temperature can shift the choice within a single day. The lap may be selected on a cold morning and ignored when sunlight warms the carpet. Vocal behavior needs similar care. A cat that meows repeatedly near one person may be requesting food, play, water, or an open door. Some cats learn that a particular human responds faster than anyone else. The sound then becomes an effective tool for changing the environment. Licking can carry several possible meanings. Cats sometimes lick familiar companions during social grooming. Human skin also contains salt from sweat, along with traces of lotion, food, or soap. A cat may lick because the taste is interesting, or because the behavior reliably brings attention. Repetitive licking can also appear during tension, making the surrounding posture important. Purring often occurs during comfortable contact. The vibration can begin while a cat needs a blanket or rests against a familiar body. Cats may also purr while frightened, injured, giving birth, or receiving medical care. The sound gains meaning from the whole animal. Loose muscles, half-closed eyes, and a body leaning into contact support a comfortable interpretation. Tension or repeated attempts to move away point toward a different state. Even dramatic greetings can be misleading. A cat may call loudly when someone returns after several hours. The greeting can reflect social interest, along with the expectation of dinner or access to a closed room. The length of the absence may raise excitement, so the loudest response does not always identify the strongest everyday bond. A lack of contact creates another set of mistaken conclusions. A cat may stop entering a room because construction noise has begun outside the window. Furniture can block a familiar path. A visiting animal may control the doorway. New perfume, hospital odors, or the scent of another cat can make a known person smell temporarily unfamiliar. Pain can reduce climbing, play, and tolerance of touch at the same time. The cat guideline experiment offers a practical reminder about these outward signs. Cats showed more friendly and positive behavior when unfamiliar people used less intrusive interaction. Those visitors waited for approaches, watched body language, and allowed withdrawal. Total physical contact could be shorter under those conditions. Frequent touching, by itself, therefore gives weak evidence about the quality of a relationship. The cat may remain longer with someone who uses less contact and responds more accurately. A stronger conclusion comes from several independent observations gathered across different situations. The cat approaches when no food is visible. Its body remains relaxed while resting nearby. It initiates more than one kind of interaction, perhaps play on one evening, and quiet proximity the following afternoon. Small signals are noticed and answered successfully. Leaving remains easy, and the person does not pursue. The cat later returns by its own choice. Preference becomes clearer when the same human is selected during ordinary calm and during mild uncertainty. Each clue rules out some simpler explanations. A food-free visit reduces the chance that feeding alone caused the approach. Choosing one of two equally warm chairs weakens the explanation of temperature. Returning after an undisturbed departure shows that the interaction remains safe enough to repeat. No single behavior has to carry the full meaning. The pattern develops from choices that agree with one another. This approach leaves room for cats whose affection looks quiet. An animal may rarely sit on a lap and still follow one person between rooms. It may dislike being held while regularly sleeping beside that person's feet. The cat's own habits determine which signs deserve the most weight. The familiar walk across the room can now be seen more clearly. It may contain recognition of scent and voice, an expectation of safe outcomes, a history of respected boundaries, and a match between two temperaments. The final movement lasts only a few seconds, though the relationship behind it may have been forming for years. Inside that brief decision, many kinds of information arrive together. The cat wakes in the same room where our journey began. Several people are nearby, and more than one comfortable place remains open. Its eyes settle on one familiar figure. The body rises, stretches, and crosses the floor. The movement may last only a few seconds, though each step rests on a long history of learning. That person carries a known odor. Their skin, clothing, bedding, and favorite chair have formed a chemical pattern the cat has encountered countless times. Experiments show that cats investigate an unfamiliar human odor longer than the odor of their caregiver. The familiar sample requires less examination because its general pattern has already become part of the known home. The person also has a recognizable voice. A call from another room can turn the cat's ears or shift its head, even when the body remains at rest. The cat has learned the speaker's pitch, rhythm, and usual way of addressing it. That voice can remain distinct beyond a wall. When researchers made a caregiver's recording seem to jump suddenly between separated speakers, cats showed surprise. The reaction suggests that the familiar human occupies an expected location inside the cat's internal map. Daily routines add a sense of order. A cupboard opens before breakfast. A laptop closes before the household moves toward bed. Certain footsteps lead to a toy drawer, while a familiar phrase often comes before a door opens. Thousands of ordinary repetitions turn these small events into predictions. The person becomes easier to understand because their actions usually lead somewhere familiar. Reward gives those predictions value. Food matters greatly, especially when hunger is strong. Human interaction can also become rewarding in its own right. Cats tested with social contact, food, toys, and scent often showed strong interest in interaction with a person, although individual preferences differed. A favored human may combine several useful outcomes within one relationship. Their arrival can lead to play, warmth, access to a room, or calm company after the activity ends. The relationship becomes more specific through coordination. This person moves a toy with the right pauses. They notice when the cat is preparing to pounce and allow the target to be captured. A glance toward the drawer has meaning because it has been answered before. The caregiver's special speaking voice, a slow blink, and a small feline gesture can all become parts of a private communication system. Trust deepens when communication includes refusal. The person notices a turning head, a moving tail, or a body shifting toward the edge of the cushion. Their hand becomes still. The cat can leave without being followed. Research using choice-based handling guidelines found that cats showed more positive behavior when people touched them less intrusively, even when the total contact was shorter. The favored person may therefore be the one who understands where contact feels welcome and when it has lasted long enough. They know that cheeks and areas near the ears are often preferred, while the paws, abdomen, or tail may require greater caution. They accept companionship at the distance the cat chooses. Some evenings bring full body contact. Other nights place the cat on a nearby chair or at the foot of the bed. The relationship continues across that open space, because the animal still receives familiar scent, sound, and information, while keeping control of movement. During uncertainty, the person can supply another kind of value. Cats have been observed looking between an unfamiliar object and their caregiver, using the human's reaction as one source of guidance. A calm voice cannot remove every concern, though it may help the cat decide whether cautious exploration can continue. Inside an unfamiliar room, some cats greet a returning caregiver and then resume examining the space. That pattern supports the idea of a secure base, a familiar individual helping the animal regulate stress well enough to explore. Each human in a household can occupy a separate role. One may provide breakfast, while someone else becomes the best play partner. Another person may offer the quietest place to sleep. Some cats spread their preferences among these relationships. Others show little exclusive attachment and remain comfortable with several people. Where one favorite does emerge, the clearest evidence appears across different needs. The cat seeks that person when no meal is visible. It rests nearby after play has ended. It returns after being allowed to leave. The same individual is chosen during calm periods and moments of mild uncertainty. This preference grows through hundreds or thousands of interactions rather than one perfect event. Recognition, prediction, reward, compatibility, autonomy, and security gradually converge on one human. The cat reaches the chosen place and turns in a small circle. Its paws fold beneath the body. The room becomes still again. No announcement marks the decision. The cat simply settles beside the person whose presence has repeatedly made life familiar, understandable, and safe.